a lot of people focus on the negative things in their life, like, why did God take me through this trial? Like,
Oh,
why
yeah.
did, I have to lose this, or why did I have to go through that? And to me,
Again, man, we're just so excited that we can bring people on this podcast that can share their experience with God and how they have God in their business, how they apply this lifestyle that we live into our businesses, because some people might think it's impossible to do that. So I'm so glad that you're here, that you can share a little bit about your experience. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What kind of business are you in?
well, my name is Alex Uriarte, so I'm an attorney, and I've had my own law firm already for 10 years. So what we do is personal injury. We represent clients that, for example, have been injured in some sort of either motor vehicle accident or slip and fall, something like that, where they have an injury, it's somebody else's fault. Maybe at that time, they're going through a lot. So, for us, it's very important to be able to take their hand and just kind of lead them. They have lots of medical expenses. They, may have missed time from work. They don't have a car. So we help them recover money for that compensation for everything that they've gone through, pain and suffering. And, the good thing is that we don't have to charge them up front because we can get that money from the insurance company at the end. As you can, it's a real hard time for everybody that's going through that. One of the toughest times in their life. So it's
Yeah.
kind of definitely refreshing to be able to help people that are going through something, and kind of lead them all the way, and hopefully at the end at least get something that can help bring that back a little bit.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I would assume that's a huge industry when it comes to that, right? I don't know if in Miami, what area is like one of the biggest industry when it comes to that? Does it depend on each state or each?
Yeah, definitely Miami, I would say, is probably one of the biggest cities for automobile accidents. I mean, if you drive in Miami,
Is that why? Is that why my insurance is going up all the time?
Yes. Yes. I mean, there's a big mix of drivers, I think, here in Miami.
Big time.
Obviously we're a melting pot from a lot of different countries. And, I'll give people a benefit of the doubt that, sometimes they may be used to driving back in their country or whatever zone they're from, whether it be even other states, New York, or, and so people drive differently there, right? You get all this mix of people, and it's kind of like a recipe for disaster. People are just,
Yeah.
crashing left and right, lots of
Yeah.
traffic, and, unfortunately, lots of people getting very angry at each other. So
Oh yeah, man. Traffic rage is like it's nuts here in Miami. But what's interesting about that is that I really believe it's more of the people that get their licenses here. For some reason, let me tell you this. In Brazil, for example, you have to take it's like it's a course. You got to go to school for it, right? So you got to do classes. You got to go and learn how to drive, how to park the car properly. Here, you just go into the office one day and you just get your license. So it's nuts. And I remember going to Brazil and I rented a car. And man, to drive in Brazil, it's nuts. I mean, it's everyone cutting each other. You got to be real. You got to be a real professional to drive out there. And it's amazing. You don't see accidents. You
Incredible.
don't see accidents. The only accidents you see over there is when somebody's drinking. And then you have, those problems. But here in Miami,
And the funny part is, even when you do see accidents, like, people don't really sue each other, right? It's like,
yeah,
it's not that kind of culture. I mean,
Right.
I've been driving in Peru, Mexico, all over the Caribbean, and a lot of those people, like, they don't want to be involved in lawsuit. They're not looking for money or anything like that. So you end up resolving things and moving on, as long as somebody's not very seriously injured, right?
Right,
But
right.
we're a very sue happy culture, I think, here. It's
Yeah. I think the reason why is because here the lifestyle that we live here in the U.S. is if you don't work, you don't eat, right? So there's that situation where if that person's injured in some type of injury, it's going to be really hard for that person to maintain their bills and to just live.
Yeah.
But in different countries, it's like hardship is already part of the, I'm not going to say normal, but you can get around. There's ways of figuring things out with little money. But over here, you need money to really survive. So I think I don't want to just look at it as a place of just sue, which is a good business for you, but at the same time, there's more to that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. A lot of, you really do need a lot of money to survive, and time is money. Obviously, if you don't have a vehicle, how do you get to work? Maybe in other countries, yeah, you have more options for transportation, right? Or maybe, yeah, they do have medical facilities that will take care of your bill, right?
It's
Whereas,
cheaper.
Yeah, obviously
Definitely.
cheaper healthcare. So, it's definitely, yeah, you're right on that this is a totally different culture.
Yeah, yeah. And something interesting that you said before, 10 years you had your practice. Bro,
Yes.
how old are you?
I'm 39 now. Yeah,
Man, you're super young, man.
Yeah, I started young. I mean, when I graduated college, I was 21. So I started law school at 21, finished at 24, and I was a lawyer already. I mean, I
Wow.
really knew from a young age that I wanted to be a lawyer. My dad's a lawyer, and I always enjoyed going to his office, going to court. But more importantly, I actually enjoyed the study of law. So, for me, theoretically, I really loved reading and analyzing history, government, those kind of things were my favorite classes. So I always knew that I really wanted to continue those studies and I would enjoy it, whether it be, one day I could either be a teacher, professor, right? Or, be an attorney. So for me, knowledge has always captivated me.
That's awesome, man. Because I think a lot of young people don't even know what they want at such an early age, but you understood exactly what you were drawn to, and it's interesting because I'm drawn towards production, cameras. Ever since I was a little kid, man, I just loved production. I almost got lost. In fact, I almost became an orphan in Brazil. I was born in New Jersey, but we spent vacation in Brazil one time, and I remember we were going to go to another state by train, and I remember I was holding my mom's hand, if I'm not mistaken, and we're just walking, and all of a sudden I just let go of her hand because I saw this production team recording a movie in the train station. So I was just like drawn towards it, and I was just looking and looking. I was like, this is amazing. And all of a sudden I look behind, I don't see nobody. And I'm like, where's everybody at? Everyone was gone. My mom didn't notice I let go of her hand, and they were already in the train to head. And then my brother just looked around and said, hey, where's Roger? And then my dad freaked out. He went crazy, and no one could find me. And then my dad went running out and saw me with a security guard, and I was crying,
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a scary moment. But ever since I was a kid, I just loved production. Always loved it, man. So it's interesting. As kids, we're drawn towards something. It seems like that's our purpose, right? That's like what we were made to do, to be. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's obviously cool that we both kind of knew that, but there's definitely, I think, a lot of kids nowadays that don't really, feel a little bit lost, like they really don't know what they want to do, and they get a lot of anxiety about that. They get stressed, they get pressure, right? They're like, I'm just not good at anything, or I don't even know what my passion is. I don't know what I want to do. You see a lot of undecided majors now, but they feel like they've been pushed into college. So, I definitely, at least I do feel blessed, at least that, I've always kind of known that. But, I'm always trying to help other people kind of understand maybe, what they have a passion for, right? What their purpose is, through conversation and always telling people, like, you got to try different things. Like,
Right.
How do I know whether I like pizza or whether I like Mexican food or Chinese, right? If I haven't tried any of them, right? So you got to go outside your comfort zone and be like, okay, I want to try this, 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 and this, right? You try 10 different foods. You're going to know which one you probably like the best, or at least be able to eliminate a few of them, right? So I think that that's really what a lot of young people need to do, especially when they're younger. You could take a lot of risk. You have plenty of years to be able to make up for that, right? So try different things, work at different jobs. If, you're kind of leaning towards this, go intern at that place, right? Or just show up, knock on the door, show that you're interested, right? And that could lead to a lot of great things.
Yeah. And I think, for us, I don't think we had so much distractions to kind of mess with our identity, right? And I think today, kids are just bombarded with different images, right? It's interesting because God says that He made us in His image, and it seems like we're being bombarded with so many different images of people's lives that we don't even know what image to really reflect. It's like, hey, I'm looking at this person has this, maybe that's me, no, maybe it's not me, and they're just jumping around and they just can't find themselves. They're just lost.
Distractions, I think that that's unfortunately like very real, and obviously the enemy uses distractions a lot of times, and then we can't focus. I heard this story the other day about when you see sometimes, you see that basketball team, they're going to do a free throw and there's like this whole section back there and all these kids are trying to do some sort of crazy distraction, right? You'll see them with all sorts of crazy costumes and things like to try to get the guy to miss. And I feel like, definitely society sometimes feels like that, where it's like you see this distraction, you see that distraction, and you just can't focus, right? Oh, this person's doing that, so I should do that. Oh, this person makes a lot of money doing this. That's what I'm gonna try to do, right? Where was that really your passion? Like, where did you get that idea from? Just because that person's doing it and it looks easy, and that's maybe a way to make money, right? No, you got to dig deeper than that.
Yeah, well said, man. So what triggered you, growing up, that you saw that God needed to be the center of your life? Like, because I know that I grew up in the church, had my choices to made some bad choices. But what was that pinnacle moment for you to say, this is who I need to be?
I feel like it's still a daily struggle, and I feel like it's hard for me to ever say like I've reached that pinnacle, right? Because life is such a journey. So, and I feel like through high school, I kind of lived in this bubble where, I went to a Christian school. The rest of the time I was in church, doing some sort of activity. I felt like, maybe 100% of my life I was either in church or my Christian school or at home or with my church friends, so you're in this bubble, right? At that time, we didn't have social media.
Right.
We had our little chat, AOL, Instant Messenger and stuff like that, but it was, very limited in terms of that. So I guess, like our lives basically centered around our family and whatever community that we were involved in, our network, right? And then, as you get older and you start getting exposed, like, as I started getting exposed to now, okay, going to college, I'm going to a public university, right? I'm seeing like all these other things, different angles, right? And different temptations from the world. And I started, kind of going a little away from that, right? Now that I start being exposed to these things, but then God has this way of bringing you back, man. So it's been a journey for me of a lot of ups and downs. I feel like my life has been a little bit of a roller coaster. But even, that's what's so amazing about God in my life is that, I've always admitted that I'm not perfect, and God just always kind of brings me back. Like I was hearing somebody talk about King David the other day, and he was just saying like, King David was really messed up. Like he did a lot of messed up things, and he was King David, right? Like a lot of people like, they just read Psalms and, just think about what an amazing relationship he had with God, but he did a lot of messed up things too. He was a sinner. He did make some mistakes, but he was a man after God's own heart. Like he always came back. He always repented, and God was like, yeah, you know what? I am going to forgive you. I know your heart. And, I have big plans for you. I have purpose for you. So, I feel like that's kind of like how my life has been.
Yeah, because for many people, they think being Christian is you're not going to have your trials, you're not going to have your tribulations. You're gonna it's gonna that's part of it, right? But it's where you are with God. It's how you deal with it. And that's
Hmm.
what I always tell people. People think you're a Christian, you're perfect. No, I'm not perfect at all. I have my struggles. Trust me, every single day. Even when I open my eyes, we're tempted. We see the cell phone right there next to our bedside, and I'm grabbing. That's the first thing I'm grabbing instead of,
Yeah.
spending time in prayer and opening up the Bible. No, I'm looking at Instagram and I'm saying, hey, what's going on with the world and this and that. And sometimes something might pop up there that shouldn't pop up, and I'm just getting bombarded the first thing. So we are constantly being attacked, but it's how we deal with it, and it's how we kind of change that path and say, you know what, what I'm doing is not helping. So it's like God is like constantly touching us and just kind of putting things in our mind and saying, look, you are not progressing. You're not getting better if you continue this path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like you recognize it because nothing is really happening. Nothing better is happening. So it's a constantly in a battle.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people focus on the negative things in their life, like, why did God take me through this trial? Like,
Oh,
why
yeah.
did, I have to lose this, or why did I have to go through that? And to me, it's almost like, like how Paul says, like, we should be giving thanks when we're going through a tribulation or a trial, because I could say that through the toughest times in my life, the trials that God has taken me through have been the times where I've gotten the closest to him,
Oh,
because
man.
I've had
Preach,
to
yeah.
essentially, like, there's nobody else in your life that could be there for you at that
Yeah.
moment. And all I could do personally is just run back to God and ask for his help, like, yes, I screwed up, I need your help, God. And then later on, I started realizing, I'm like, wow, thank you for that trial, God, because without that, I'd still be lost, right? I wouldn't have run back to you
Yeah.
and changed certain habits, certain things in my life.
Yeah, man, you hit something so important. As an entrepreneur, you've been in the business for 10 years. I've been in the business for, let's say, 3 years, and man, the amount of times where, and I always tell God, I said, Lord, please don't let me have to go through hardships to wake up. I just want to seek you when things are good, but in reality, that's not that's not what happens, right? And so, going through my phases in the businesses, there's so many times I'm like, man, this is hard, Lord. I just want to cry.
If it was
You know,
easy,
I-
everybody would be doing it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And there's moments I'm in my house and my wife is like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "It's tough. This is tough. This is hard." And I'm there just bawling sometimes, and I just go out for a run. And then when I'm going out for a run, I'm just like, "Lord, how wonderful you are, Lord.
Mhm.
You have always provided for me in the worst situations, and I'm
Yes.
still doubting you."
And we learn through those situations.
Oh,
And that's what
man.
a lot of people don't understand, is that, again, they focus on the negative part of it. Like, why am I going through this? If you want to look good, right? You want to, you got to go to the gym. You got to work out. You got to go through that pain
hurts.
in order for
Yep.
you to get that ideal body that you want. It's not like you just snap your fingers and just have that body. You can't take those shortcuts, right? And I heard this example the other day too, that this girl was talking about, like, sometimes we pray for something and then we feel like we didn't get it. Like, for example, she uses the example of a cake. Oh, God, I prayed for a cake, right? And then God gives you the ingredients for the cake, right? He gives you the eggs, he gives you the flour, but you still, like, there's a lesson to be learned from making the cake, right? He gives you the ingredients, you got to do the work, you got to put it together. And then, you bake that cake, right? And then you can show others because now you've gone through the process, right? And sometimes, like, I could be so ungrateful that I could be like, God, I didn't pray for this. I prayed for the cake. Why didn't you give me what I prayed for? And God is like, I gave you all of the tools. I gave you all of the resources. You just got to put it together, right? No, but I don't want to do that. That's too much work, right? Just give me the cake, right? But it really just puts things into perspective that, we need to go through certain things in order for him to teach us the lesson of it.
Oh man, yeah. That's so true, man. It's really teaching me so much about myself, my spiritual walk. Just going through the different phases, but it's really chipping at me, right? Because there's little things that need to be changed in my life, and I'm like, man, I didn't notice that before. I didn't notice I was acting this way. I didn't know that I was doing this. I don't know why this was happening. So there's a lot of little things that I'm figuring out about myself that at late age, I'm 42 now, that I'm like, man, there was a lot of stuff I was just throwing under the carpet and I wasn't confronting, and now as an older man, I'm not that old, but, more mature, you start realizing, man, I just should have confronted this way before.
Yeah.
So it's through those moments of stress. And a lot of people just want to run away from stress. Even the young people are like, oh, I don't want to deal with nothing that's stress. Yeah, life is stressful. But in that stress, we're able to kind of break through to what God's purpose is in our lives.
Yeah, it's hard at that moment, but, you just have to stick with it. You have to trust the process. You have to trust in Him that He's going to bring you through that situation. And even, I imagine God like crying as we're going through that pain because He doesn't want to see us suffering. But it's something that he just basically says to me, like, child, like, I have to allow you to go through this in order for you to come out stronger on the other side,
Yeah. I like not an illustration, but sometimes we get the image of God wrong when it comes to the story of Adam and Eve, right? Adam and Eve sin. And then God comes along and He says, woman, you're going to now go through pains when you bear children now. And the man, you're going to work and it's going to be hard. And some people might look at God and say, man, God is cruel. God is really messed up for doing that. But in reality, deep down inside, God is saying to Adam and Eve and saying, look, life for your kids, for you, is going to get really hard. But I'm going to let you go through these pains because it's through those pains you're going to be able to overcome the trials that are going to come along.
Yeah, yep.
So it's interesting. So it wasn't a punishment, but it was God preparing the body, preparing us to confront the issues that were going to come along with what we deal with today. So I think that's a very powerful statement of the person that I heard that. From that person.
And
just
everything
awesome.
that happens in our life is just part of our journey, and that's why, try not to have regrets on what happened in the past, right?
Yes.
Because everything has made you who you are today and has gotten us to where we are.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So, in your line of business, some people might look at it as, you're taking advantage of people's injuries and making money off of that or whatever the case is. And there's always the negative part when it comes to any business. Any business, you can cut corners. So how does your belief in God and having God in the center of your life, right? There's certain principles that we live by. How does that help you in your business kind of like make those tough decisions that you need to make?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, one of the first things that I started thinking about when I wanted to open up my own business was like, how can I be different than other law firms that are in this business, right? Like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this in order to make myself wealthier, or is there something more to that? Can I be a staple in the community? Can I be here to serve others, to help others, to give back, to have my employees as well be an example to others, and maybe for us to look for ways to give back to the community, right? And really make a difference, because if we're not making a difference, then why are we here? What is our purpose?
Right.
So that's why I think it's so important for businesses to really sit down and analyze their vision, right? Their mission, their values, and write it out and explain to your staff what it is. Because if they don't know, then how can you expect the business to really go in that direction?
Right.
And everything that happens in your business has to align with those core values and your mission and your vision, right? You always go back to that and you're like, okay, does this align with what we planned, right? And I think that kind of always helps to bring it back. Anytime you got to make a big decision, anytime you're analyzing, changing something in the business, just going back to that.
Yeah, man, that's super important. I think, for us here, in our business, it's the same thing. There's things that we want to do to kind of cut corners. And I always tell people that, you know, um, success cannot be measured by the type of car you're driving, cannot be by the size of your bank account. Um, for me, success needs to be by the fruit that you produce,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I
Absolutely.
think if, what are you really leaving behind, and what are people going to remember you by? And I think legacy, that word always comes into my mind. Legacy. What is the legacy you're leaving behind? And that people are going to be like, that person I did business with, and it was a good person, man. We're not perfect, but I love doing business with that person.
Yeah, yeah. Or I learned something from that person that's going to help me be a better person, and then show that to others as well. And I'm a big believer in that, in being able to try to make a difference for others.
Yes, yes.
And I feel like, people ask me all the time, like, how did you get so successful, or how did you grow your law firm? And the first thing that I tell them is, I didn't do anything. I don't feel like I'm smarter than anyone else. I don't feel like I even work harder than anyone else, but it's just the number one thing I think is being generous, being a person that enjoys service, giving back to others. And God always multiplies that tenfold. So the people that want to obviously be successful, that's the first thing I tell them is, you got to start giving back.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing else other than that. And God will see that and continue to bless you and say, okay, I can entrust you with more, right? There's something very powerful in seeing, like, if God wanted to give somebody an incredible amount of power, he has to look at their heart and see kind of like, what would they do with that? And he
Right.
tests us with, a little bit here, a little bit there, right? And those people that maybe squander it away are kind of showing already what their intentions would be if they were to have a lot of wealth, right?
Right.
Because we all kind of know that money doesn't really change people. It just kind of amplifies
Yeah.
the type of person that you are. So
Absolutely.
if you're a greedy and selfish person with very little money, you're going to be a greedy and selfish person with a lot of money, right? You're just going to do it at a bigger scale, right? But if you're a very generous person when you have very little money, you're going to be a generous person when you have a lot of money. And God will see that, bless you even more. And with that comes even more responsibility to help even more people.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I was speaking about that yesterday, in fact. Money just amplifies who you are. So the whole idea of, money changes you, money changed that person. No. The money did not change anybody. Money just amplified who that person already was.
Yeah.
That's just basically it. And, and I think it's important for us to understand when it comes to, us measuring that. Again, it's like, I never want to see that person say, man, he is so successful because he has this car, he has this and that. And again, you can't measure it by that.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you there's a lot of people in your field who are probably wealthier than you, that have a lot more than you, right? But the question is that person doing the right things? Is that person sleeping at night and have a certain peace that, we did the right thing?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you that I know certain people who want to cut corners to make very easy and fast money.
Yeah.
Because there are ways for you to, especially in that industry, for you to cheat the system. There's just so many different ways. But is there peace in your heart to say, man, I'm building something here that is going to really impact people's lives? I really care to see that person well.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that there's definitely, like, you can grind, you could do a lot of hard work, and you can network, and you could do things to grow your business and still be somebody that is aggressive in your business, but at the same time, yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go out and do, illegal things or unethical things in order to get there,
Yeah.
And then, and going back to your point, it's definitely like, even if these people do get there, like how long do they stay there, right? How long does that last? And then if it does get taken away, what are they left with, right? Because if you go back to the legacy that you were talking about, right? What are they going to say about that person at that point, right? Everyone just leaves their side and like, oh, well, they're not successful anymore, right? But what about the person that really did, go out and help people every day, always was sharing, always was, maybe giving a good example or passing on something to the next generation? That's their legacy, not what they had or what they didn't have. Like, you probably wouldn't even remember what car that person had. All you remember is what they showed you one day. Like, man, that's the legacy that I want to leave behind, that I want people to be like, no, he was able to show me this and show me that. And I can only do that because that's what God has shown me, right? So I can only do that for others. Like, I can't think of any other way other than, just being that example for others and hoping that they can pass that on, and we could be a better society in general by, continuing to make a difference and pay it forward.
That's awesome, man. I did speak with one of your employees, and I told him, I'm going to interview Alex on the podcast. He said, oh, that's super great. And, I had to ask him, I know he's not going to tell me the truth, but I said, what do you think about your boss? And he was like, man, he's good people, man. He's good people. And that's important for me because, again, having, and the reason why I say that is because, I asked him, be sincere with me, right? And he was like, no, man, he's really good people. And that's the type of character you want to leave behind, because people recognize that as a leader. And for what you've built for this short time, because for me, I think 10 years is a very short time. And I think you're up. How many employees you got now?
We have 40 employees now.
40 employees?
Yeah.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
That's a blessing.
Yeah, and I can only attribute it to God, really, and just the way that He's grown the firm. I know that He has purpose for us, and as long as He has that purpose, the firm is going to continue growing and continue being successful. And the day that He no longer has that purpose or has a different journey for me, I'm okay. I'm content with that, and I know that I just got to continue trusting in Him. I'm along for the ride, and anybody that He brings me to help, I help them because, at the end of the day, I feel like I'm just a steward, somebody that's been entrusted with something that God has given me. And I'm content with that for whatever time period that may be and whatever other further goals He has for me. I can accept that and continue to help others as long as I'm here and as long as I have, whatever it is that I have, even when I have nothing. I got to be content with that and continue to always give back. And it's not about being a good person or not a good person, because what is it to be a good person, right? Because, like Paul says, like, none of us are good, right? Like, we all fall short of the glory of God, when we're comparing ourselves to each other. Maybe you say that person's good, that person's not good, but do you really know what's in their heart or, what they do behind closed doors? Who are you to really be able to figure out who's good and who's not good? So, it's more about just, I think, being that example and at least doing good things, doing as many good things as you can to try to help others and inspire others, and be able to build that legacy for sure. But, at the end of the day, only God is good. We're all sinners. And if somebody were to look at me and, only be like, oh, no, I want to be like that person, like, I'm going to disappoint you. I'm going to fail you at some point, right? That's why I just tell people, look to God. Don't look to me. Don't thank me for the gift I've, if I helped you with something, like, just thank God, because through God using me is the way that that's come back to you.
Yeah. I'm going to rebuttal you. Listen, guys, I'm rebuttaling a lawyer, which will destroy me, right? But, just to your point, what you're saying there, but I want to emphasize something very important, because, what makes you different from me in a sense of, if we use that measurement of what you have and what I have, it seems like God is hearing more of your prayer than my prayer, right? And I want to be very clear on something, because there is work that goes into this. Yeah. Faith without works is dead, right? So it's very important that we recognize, yes, God is the provider, and God does bless us with what we have. But he also asks us for our faith, our obedience. And he wants us to be stewards. You use that word steward, to be responsible. And I think, and this is very important, it's not that Alex was here just praying and saying, God, use this business, and that's it. No, there was a lot of work that went into this. You studied, you found the best people to work with, you set up a team. Can you verify that? Is that correct? Or it just appeared out of nowhere? How did that happen? Because
I mean, again, I'm a strong believer that God had a purpose for me and always had that purpose for me and had, a certain thing drawn out in my life. So, I try not to take credit for that, but, if God gave me the ingredients, like going back to the cake example,
Good.
right? And I, actually took that leap of faith, put together the cake, and then, God said, well, I want you to show others how to make this cake as well. Or, then I started giving, that cake to some homeless people or whatever it may be that I did to try to help others, right? Then God says, you know what? I'm going to entrust you with more cake making ingredients, right? In order for you to, I see that you're doing a great job with this, right? Versus the person that just ate the cake or threw it away or didn't make the cake ever, right? So, and we see examples of that in the Bible where Jesus tells the parables of, the servants, right? The
talents.
The talents, right? And, the one that really multiplied the talents is the one that continued to get rewarded, right? But the one who buried it away, unfortunately, more was not given to them.
Right. I love that example. And Alex, so how do you have a family, married? How many kids you got?
I got 2 kids.
2 kids, man. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So how do you balance this out, man? It's family life. You're running a firm, a business. How do you balance family life with your business?
That's always a challenge. I mean, I will tell you that running a business is not easy because some people ask me, like, how many hours a week do you work, right? And you just kind of have to laugh when you're a business owner. You know that you're working from when you open your eyes to when you close your eyes. And sometimes even in your sleep, like, right?
Yes.
You're dreaming about work and stress and things like that. So, it is definitely very challenging. And, I can't say enough about my wife and my kids about how they're able to really, always understand that. They're very understanding that, when dad has to take a call, when dad has to go see a client, sometimes, they do need to be able to understand that, right? But, always it's important for us to also prioritize God and our family first before work, but at the same time, we do have to work hard and we can't just be like, okay, no, I'm just going to stay home all day with the family, right? There's that line that you kind of draw on, that balance that you try to do where it's like, okay, I do need to work. I need to work hard. I'm going to produce. I'm going to be a good example for my kids as to what hard work really is. But at the same time, when it is time for them, we do need to go ahead and I'll use myself as an example. Like I am always on my phone. Because, I constantly have clients texting me, calling me, emails coming in, very important things. And I have to catch myself sometimes and be like, okay, you need to stop. You need to put it down. I could be with my son playing and I'm still on the phone. And he's like, Papi, you get off your phone, like play with me.
Wow.
And
he calls your attention?
Oh, he calls me out on
man.
it all the time, So
it's the Holy Spirit telling you something.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I do got to do that. So I'm not going to lie. It's been challenging, but it is something that I think at some point in your business, after a lot of sacrifice, you can get to a place where you do have a little bit more free time. And I think that's the eventual goal for everybody, right? You're not just, the goal is not just to be wealthy, right? The goal is to have freedom because now a lot of us are realizing that time is what we were always looking for, right?
Oh, man.
And so having the ability, having the money working on its own, essentially, right? Where you build a system that can essentially run without you, that's when you finally have that freedom, you have that time, and then you could really strike that balance. But there's years of hard work that go into the beginning of your business that sometimes, you're working 80-hour weeks, right? You're working till 10 o'clock at night, but eventually you do see the fruit of that.
Yeah. I enjoy every moment of it. And, talking to my wife, I've been with my wife for 24 years. We don't have kids yet. but it's interesting. She's very supportive of what I'm doing, the business, and it's so funny because I was like telling her the other day, I'm like, you just don't understand how much pressure, because sometimes she's talking to me about something and this and that. I'm like, listen, there's a lot going on right now. And I threw something at her the other day, and she was like, I asked her, "Are you praying for me?" And she's like, I've been praying. It's like, please continue on praying for me.
Yeah.
We need this. And the other night, I kind of like had an attitude with her, and I caught myself, and she's like, "You've been a little bit grumpy," and I said, "You know what? I apologize. I'm sorry. You're absolutely right. I can reflect and see how my attitude has changed, but at the same time, I'm like, no, it can't be this way, And this is why it's important when we have a relationship with God. He kind of gives us that humbleness to be like, you know what? Start reflecting on yourself.
Yeah.
You're not behaving properly. You need to trust me more. You're worrying about too many things, and you're not trusting me.
Yep.
And I started thinking about that. I was like, what is this going to be all worth if I'm giving my whole life to the business, but then I'm losing my whole family? It just doesn't work that way. So God had to kind of like wake me up with that. And, I hugged my wife and everything. And she's like, I understand. I get it, But at the same time, it's a lot of pressure. And this is why this conversation and this podcast is super important, Alex. And I really appreciate you opening up, because some people might come on here and just kind of say, hey, everything is flowers. I live this perfect Christian life. No, it's not that. We have our trials. We have our struggles. But we try to build a strong relationship with God, and understand that, hey, bro, I thought I was by myself in this struggle, but you're going through the same thing too. But we find strength when we share with each other our experiences.
Absolutely.
So it's super important.
And I think that's, definitely the Sabbath plays a big role in that, because it's like you're forced essentially almost to like not work,
Yes,
so
yes.
for me, it's that time period where it's like, okay, at least my brain knows like no work during this 24-hour period, and really like taking that in and using that in your lifestyle can really give you that rest for those 24 hours. It's just you and God, you and your family. And there's nothing work related during that time. I think that could be really, really helpful for the mind and for everything.
Absolutely. And again, I was talking to my first guest, John Brown. He's an NFL player, and we're kind of talking about that. And the Bible is our manual, and there's everything in there, everything, how we basically function. And we have a habit of, as humans, we have a habit of, it's like for me, for example, when I buy something that's technology, I'm so excited. I'm like a little kid. I grab it and I just start using it. But you'll never see me grab the manual. You won't see me grab the manual until I get bored and there's something wrong with the equipment, and I go and I get the manual and then I just start reading it, and I was like, oh man. But what's interesting about the manual is then you start discovering that you can do so many other things. Like, what? I can do this? What? I can record in 4D? What? Like, you start reading all these amazing things, and then you're like, man, you see, I only knew 1%, 2% of what this device can do. And the Bible's the same thing. When you read it and you dissect it properly, we are made in a very unique way. God, our creator, has created us in such a unique way. So, keeping the Sabbath, resting one day, during the week does do something to our spiritual life. It does do something for us as we work 6 days a week. We can just turn off ourselves and just be like, hey, God, this is between me and you now.
Yes.
Let's rest.
Yes.
And it does, for me, it just brings me so much benefit. I don't think I could be operating like this right now without that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, man, Alex, that's so deep, man. So what are the plans for your firm? What's the next phase?
I mean, definitely continuing to grow, of course. Growth is always very important, and a key indicator that you're doing something right. So we definitely want to be able to hire more employees and grow. At some point, you kind of outgrow your city at that point, or at least grow the maximum that you really can grow in your area, right? So I guess the eventual next step would be opening up in other cities, Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville. They all have very hot markets in terms of, definitely a lot of people that are the same way, melting pot, a lot of different driving experiences and backgrounds, right? So there tend to be a lot of motor vehicle accidents and unfortunately a lot of injuries from there. And you do see a lot of law firms out there that are taking advantage of people, that they're doing, very shady things, and that they don't care about their customer. They don't really care about what's going on in their life or, how was their experience. Right. They don't care about giving back to the community or, making a difference or anything like that. So I think there's definitely a genuine need for that. And, people that have that kind of feeling like they want to be able to be led also by a firm that has the same beliefs as them. And, they can feel like that connection and know also that, they're making a difference in the community.
Wow. That's deep, man. That's really good, man. All the success for you, man, because again, it's very hard to find good services. And I think, it's very important for us to highlight, that I can go to somebody that I can trust. Now, trusting in somebody 100%, you always, have one point where you're just like, I can't trust you 100%, right? But there's always that factor of, seeing who that person is, getting to know that person, understanding that person has their well intent for me and for what happened to me. So, that's very important. So if somebody wants to find you, where can they find you? How can they reach out to your firm? How can they do it?
We do have a website, www.uriartelegal.com, or in Spanish, uriartelegal.com.
Don't worry, guys, you'll see it in the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, so usually people will reach out to us that way, or they'll call our number. Our number and all our information is on there on the website. You could even see Google reviews and see other people's experiences as well, which, I think is important as well.
That's awesome, man. Man, one more thing. Is there a verse in the Bible, man, that has changed your life? The one thing that just you always have to go to, man. Is there that message in the Bible that impacts you?
For some reason, one that's always stuck out with me is in Psalm 23, where it's like, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. And I think that that's always kind of stuck around with me because, as a human, I kind of have that spirit of fear a lot of times. And, as growing up, was like constantly bombarded with fear. Don't do that because this could happen. Don't go there. Don't risk this, right? And just constantly reminding myself that no matter where I go, God is always there with me, even in the valley of the shadow of death. Like he's still there with me, guiding my every move, always next to me.
That's deep, man. I appreciate that verse, man. I would have never thought you were going to mention that verse, but that's a verse because sometimes people use that verse in the moment of death, basically. It's like you're dying and, they mention that verse. But, it's through all situations. And it's a huge reminder that, again, no matter what you're going through, whatever situation you're in, God is present, even when we just don't believe in it. And I love, when we look at Jesus on the cross and Jesus on that cross just hanging there and he's saying, Abba, Father, why have you abandoned me? Even Jesus himself, even in that moment of death,
the shadow of death,
he felt like he was away from God and God was away from him, but God was always there with him in that situation.
Yes.
So even in our weaknesses and our doubts, we're always going to question, but nothing's going to change the fact that he's there. Nothing's going to change that.
Yeah, there's nothing to fear. God is there with us even in, it's the shadow of death, not necessarily death itself, right?
Exactly.
when we feel like we're alone, when we feel like it's over, when we feel like we've hit rock bottom, right? God is telling us, don't worry, don't fear, right? Stick through it. I'm here with you. There's something to learn from this. Things are only going to get better, and we, I realized like I needed to go through that in order to get to the other side and to fulfill the plans that he had for me, right? Because were it not for going through that situation, I would have not changed certain things in my life, right?
Right,
And again,
right.
it's still a daily struggle. I'm still as human as everyone else. I get constant temptations and get bombarded. And, every single day, you just got to go to God and ask for more strength to try to overcome and, try to go out there and make a difference.
Amen, brother. Amen, man. Again, Alex, I just want to thank you so much, man, for coming on and sharing your story, sharing your experience. And again, we want to encourage others, not just, adults and entrepreneurs, but young men who want to make a difference in their lives. And it's very important that, it's possible. It's possible to live a holy life. And again, guys, don't get that mixed up. Holy is just us obeying God. We're not better than you. We're not better than anyone, but we want to live a life that reflects God's character. That is the main thing. And there's so much benefit when it comes to that.
Absolutely.
So much benefit. So guys, if you're discouraged, if you're looking for something better, find a good mentor. It's super important. Find a good mentor that's going to take you to that direction. That's what we need most of all. And I know the church is doing something. I don't know if you want to mention that now, but there's some works going on there. And I know you want to do something more for the community too, right?
Yeah, and that's something that I had been thinking about for a long time of like, why doesn't our church kind of do something for that younger generation that may be lost, right? Sometimes they could be sitting next to an entrepreneur. They don't even know the incredible amount of value that's sitting right next to them, right? If they only knew, they'd probably be like, oh my goodness, I want to speak more to this person. I want to go to their place of business. This could be like a multimillionaire real estate investor, and you might be interested in real estate, right? And you just would never know, right? So, it's one of those things that, I've always kind of thought that it would be an amazing thing to just connect those people that have gone through a lot of things. Because like you said, like, what is it worth if one day, we pass away and there's, what did we leave for others,
the
right?
legacy you're leaving behind, yeah.
So as we get older and like you said, more mature, we've learned a lot of things in life, and, maybe there are stuff that we can pass down to a younger generation and be like, well, if I were to go back 10, 20 years with the knowledge that I have now, this is what I would do, right? You can't go back in time to your younger self, but, there's a younger self sitting right across the pew from you, essentially. Like, that's you 20 years ago. So why aren't we telling them, hey, look, maybe you could do this, maybe you could do that, help just kind of guide them, maybe even, teaching them things that school doesn't really teach them, a little bit about investing, about taxes, about opening up your own business. These are things that, some of these youth are interested in, and they just don't know where to start. They don't know who to ask. But, I've been inspired by a lot of others, whether it be YouTube, social media, just seeing a lot of these influencers and speakers, they've just said things that have really given me a knowledge base and just making me want to share that with others, right? That way we can continue passing that down and paying it forward. So that initiative is something that we're really interested in starting in the church and getting younger people to sign up to have some sort of mentor and kind of them switch around to different mentors, maybe seeing different industries of businesses, entrepreneurship, and kind of going there maybe, 1 month going to this business, 1 month going to the other business, so they can try out different things as well. Because I feel like a lot of youth don't really know what they want to do yet because they haven't really tried a lot of things. If you've been stuck at home, basically just, online on TikTok all the time, like you may not know what you want to do.
Can't live other people's lives. You can't live other people's lives. I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Stop living other people's lives and get out there.
Yeah, get out there and try different things. And I think, something like this could help to open up that expansion and be able to say, well, I kind of liked this. I really did not like that type of business. It wasn't for me. And help narrow it down. We could also do quarterly meetings where we sit down, kind of do like a lunch and learn, do also like different books that we can give them to read that have inspired us, because you really need that knowledge base. Like, a lot of people want to get rich overnight or be successful overnight. And they're like, just give me the formula, give me the cake. Right. And it's like, okay, the ingredients are right here in this book, right? This is what changed my life. And they're like, all right, yeah, I'll read it, at some point, right? But yeah, I mean, I think building that knowledge base is like, you want to build a skyscraper, you got to build the foundation first.
Absolutely.
And so these books are the foundation. This is what changes your mindset. And that's incredibly important. Once you got the foundation, now you can understand what I'm going to tell you, right? So I'm going to tell you this, and now that you've changed how you look at money, how you look at the world, how you look at society, how you look at culture, you can really flip that around, and you'll understand and process things a lot better. So there'll definitely be some homework involved as well, because you got to, they got to put in the work as well.
Yeah. So guys, stay tuned for that. Well, I'm gonna be I'm just putting myself on camera right now, just talking about that. I want to really help Alex with this project as well, and we got to get more people involved. I think that's very important. I think for me, in my younger stage, I think that was something that I was missing. And I think today we got to kind of change that past, that story, and kind of make a difference today. So I really appreciate the time that you're going to be putting into that. And again, may God continue to bless you, your job, everyone that works there, and that we can continue just growing for the kingdom of heaven.
Amen. And thank you for having me here, allowing me to share a little bit with others. Of course, anybody that is ever interested in speaking more about some of these topics can definitely reach out to me. And thank you for doing this. Obviously you're doing something great and getting this content out there as well.
Thank you so much, Alex. Do you have a personal handle or Instagram?
Yeah, Uriarte Law. So at Uriarte Law. Yeah, there they can find us on Instagram and add us.
Perfect. Well, again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share. It is very important, guys. It doesn't take much for you to subscribe to the channel. Again, we're trying to build a movement. We're trying to make a movement here. Again, we're not perfect, guys, but we're doing everything to present the kingdom of heaven to the world, and especially to men. Very important. We need a lot of men to step up and to share Jesus with other people. So guys, stay tuned. Thank you so much.